Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the live series in which I attempt to experiment with exposure therapy, looking at stupid and crazy in order to fend off my own crazy and stupid. My mommy thinks I'm smart. Anyway, guys, welcome to Saturday. Welcome to the wonderful world of being locked away in my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a pepper jack in my hand, because I think I'll need it for this one. Yeah, well, we'll get into that shortly. But let me say hello to those of you who have decided to join me on this adventure today. And it will be an adventure, I have no doubt, given the subject matter. Person, hello. Cultist, hello. Fox 61, hello. Samundial Nation, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Yoshi the Macabre, hello. Mike R, hello. Chicago Mike, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Hearst Gravegear, hello. Robbie Schroeder, hello. Swan 732, hello. So, guys, we return again to the wonderful world of education. If you don't already know, I have a playlist series on my channel called Curriculum of Fear. And this particular one, I think, if I'm correct about the subject and possibly what's therein, because I haven't watched it yet, this would fit in very well with my Curriculum of Fear series. Let's see. Dead Kaiser, hello. Jay Mizzle, hello. Pink Hollow Driving 8-Man, hello. That One Servant of Satania, hello. Gulf City, Johnny Blaze, hello. Angela Arriaga, hello. P-Dog Knight, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. All right, so what is today's presentation? And Becca Fairley, hello. Thank you for the retweet. Oh, by the way, guys, if you use Twitter and you're able to retweet the stream, if you tag me in the tweet, I'd appreciate it. Be sure to put a period at the beginning of it. So, because if you just tag me without putting a period, only I see it kind of thing. Anyway, if you tag me in your retweet, please be sure to do so I can see that you've done so and I can say thank you, because I do appreciate it when you guys retweet and share my stuff. And I have every intention of thanking those of you who go that extra step. I do appreciate it. Cannibalistic Wizard, hello. Sar Jim, hello. GJ Seed, hello. All right, anyway, so today's presentation is called Dismantling White Supremacy in Education. Sounds great, doesn't it? Yeah, well, I guess we'll find out about that. Now, there is something I want to point out about the source of this particular presentation. It says Youth at Ursuline Academy. Now, there is a subcategory of TEDx talks that are like TEDx Youth, and they go to high schools and they have young speakers come up and things like that. As a general rule, and I've broken this before I really thought about it way back in the early days of my channel. As a general rule, I will not do TEDx talks that feature underage or teenage speakers or anything, for a couple of reasons. One, I don't really feel good like harping on some kid, right? And two, I try to focus on people who comport themselves or present themselves as experts, professionals, etc. And high school students don't qualify. And so, you know, someone who actually has gone through the education, has a career, something like that, and then they're espousing something that they believe in, whether I agree with it or not, that kind of thing. So those are the types of people that I will generally avoid doing TEDx talks on, and that's kids. Now, in this instance, it's marked as Youth at Ursuline Academy, but the speaker is not a youth. As far as I can tell, she's an educator herself. So that is just a clarification of both my sort of personal rule when it comes to these things and for the sake of this one presentation. Okay, well, with all of that out of the way, a couple more hellos. Hakatus Maximus, hello. Cypher, hello. And I think that's everybody. If I missed you, I will try to say some hellos before the end of the stream. Old Guy Gamer, hello. All right, so per usual, guys, I'm going to play the first couple of seconds. You guys tell me if you can hear it all right. It's only a 9-minute, 30-second presentation, so it's not the longest, such as the last couple have been. But given the subject matter and my presumptions about where we're going, it might be very weighty. So here we go.
So how many people here believe in equity and justice?
How many people here believe in equity and justice? You guys hear that okay? K. Scholl, hello. W.R. Costin, hello. Some Emulation says, sounds good. How many people here believe in equity and justice? Now, if that isn't the premier type of immediate test your virtue sort of inquiry, it reminds me of those speakers that say, I'm here to teach empathy, or I'm here to encourage empathy in people, or something like that. Who's not going to raise their hand? Equity and justice, even though those two words are kind of synonymous. Who doesn't believe in those things? Well, somebody that's been cheated out of fairness in their life or something. But let's just see. Does anybody not raise their hand? Of course, we won't see the audience, but what an opener.
How many people believe education is one of the most powerful tools in building a future society?
Okay, so you're getting the audience on your side very quickly. Hey, do you believe in this thing that is a general truth and or desire of civilized human beings, equity and justice? Hey, do you think that education is important for the future of our society? So already you're on the same page with me, speaker who I've never met before. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. I'm right there with you. Obviously, this Trojan horse of agreement is not going to lead me down some horrible, horrible pathways.
Now, how many people here identify as a white supremacist?
Oh, there's a cold bucket of water. I was just starting to like you. I'm assuming not many. I'm assuming not many, because the actual number of card-carrying, literally or figuratively, white supremacists in this country is very few. You could probably almost fit them into about half of a stadium if the numbers from certain nonprofits are true. So, gosh, I wonder if anybody will raise their hand. That'd be hilarious if like people raised their hands. Which I wonder what she would do. Also, I know it's not the same lady, but she looks a lot. She reminds me a lot of the Rapinoe, the soccer player. I forget her first name, but she reminds me of that just visually. Anyway.
So we can agree that we all believe in equity and justice and using education to build that future. But is
So we can all agree. You already agree with me on the fundamentals of my talk. So I don't have to do any hard work of convincing you of anything, because I've already put you in a moral test that you have to pass if you want to listen to what I have to say. All right.
Is it possible that we might be sustaining white supremacy through our education system without even realizing it?
Well, now that you've asked the question, I have to assume that we are, because I mean, I agree with you on everything else already. So if you have some kind of insight into this, well, I already agree with you on equity and justice and the importance of education. So if you say that white supremacy is in the educational system, then there must be white supremacy in the educational system. Right? Right.
When I was in 3rd grade, I was taught a very powerful lesson about white supremacy. This was in 1988, and I observed my teacher chase an African-American boy around the room, shove him against the wall, hold him down, and force him to eat soap.
Okay.
He spoke out against her. And the reason he spoke out against her was because one by one, throughout the year, she was moving every Black student to one side of the room until the room was segregated into white students and Black students.
Okay. This is one of those stories that I'm like, sounds too awful to be true. But then I remember that people can be terrible. I'm sure there's a whole lot of facts and or truths missing from this story. But for the sake of argument, I will stipulate to it, again, for the sake of argument, you have a horribly racist public school teacher in third grade. Okay. And this third grader was trying to speak out against her. And so she chased him around the room, pinned him to the ground, and shoved soap in his mouth in front of all the other kids. And after this, if that action in and of itself wouldn't be enough to get that teacher suspended or fired, after this, she gradually segregated her classroom between white and black without having been penalized in some fashion for assaulting a third grader. Okay. Thank you, Mikhail, the Driving Ape Man. You need a Cenk Uygur soundboard, right? Yeah, I know. I don't have a soundboard. I don't even know if I'd use it if I had one. So occasionally if I say right, I got to underscore it with right. Or maybe do a dramatic squirrel. Dun, dun, dun. Anyway, okay. So you have the super racist teacher in third grade who was able to get away with this for some period of time without consequence. All right, go on.
And one day she looked at the white students in the room and she said, "Don't you wish we could put a curtain there so we didn't have to look at them?"
Okay, you're testing my patience with suspending my disbelief. You really, really are. Don't get me wrong. I have met some exceedingly racist people in my life. It's true. A public school teacher assaulting a third grader with a bar of soap, splitting the kids down the middle in the classroom by race, and then saying, "Wouldn't you rather we have a curtain there so you don't have to look at them?" You're testing my patience, speaker. You're testing my patience, my patience with suspending disbelief, I should say. I'm going to go through the rest of this. I really am. Let's see. Nothing for you here. Hello. Pixel Torchic. Hello. Asian Hippie. Hello. Functional. Hello. Quinn the Cultist. Hello. Dectran. Hello. J Hess. Hello. Maniac Man 2030. Hello.
Now we take a minute with that.
Oh, I've taken a couple minutes with that because it sounds like BS. I could be wrong. I don't know. I have only your word to take on it, but it sounds like BS.
We could dismiss this whole thing and say that woman was a terrible person, she was a racist, and that was an anomaly.
Yes, we could. If she was actually real and really did those things, which again, I'm forced to doubt.
But instead, I would like for you to stay here with me in this uncomfortable scene for just a minute.
Ah, yes, the virtues of discomfort. Stay with me. An audience that has nowhere to go is there to see whoever's speaking. So they don't have a choice, but okay. Thank you, Mr. Scott J87. Says the woman who has an alt-right haircut. Is that what that is? I don't know these days. I don't keep up on the politically charged hairstyles of the day. And thank you. This is Kyle. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. Thank you so much.
And imagine that this is actually a perfect metaphor for how our U.S. education system is working even today.
Okay. So the U.S. education system, let's see now. I'm testing my memory here. The Education Amendments of 1972, I think, that made it illegal to implement things like what our speaker is describing. Now, I don't know how old our speaker is, but I'm assuming that if she was in the third grade, it probably was sometime after is it 72 or 76? But either way, I'm pretty sure it's sometime after 1976. So I have a feeling that she's describing something that is horribly, horribly illegal, even when she was in third grade. And I'm still bewildered as to how this teacher got away with assaulting a third grader with a bar of soap and then progressively over time segregating her classroom and making such public comments to children as to suggest her completely racist ideology. Because that's her preamble. And now she wants me to extend that quote unquote metaphor to cover the entire educational system of the United States. Not a good start.
So Chris Emden, a teacher of teachers, says that education is the civil rights issue of our time.
Okay, so this one person says that, so it must be true?
The Wilmington Education Improvement Commission released a study showing there are really two school systems, one that primarily serves white students and one that primarily serves Black and brown students.
Okay. Some emulation says, Scribe Light, she said this was in 88. Okay, 1988, gotcha. Let's see, Gunfox says she's like in her 30s, so yeah, she was likely born in the early 80s. Right, yeah, she doesn't look older than me, and this was only done like a year ago or so yeah. All right.
An EdBuild study recently reported that $2,000 more per year per child is given to those school districts that serve white students, which translates to $23 billion a year that Black and brown students are being under-resourced in school.
I would be very curious to know how they arrived at those numbers. Does it have anything to do with population density? Does it have anything to do with the size of the schools, the number of students there, and on? Whittling it down and saying it's just about race, I am suspicious of that.
Now, in Audre Lorde's famous essay, "The master's tools can never be used to dismantle the master's house."
Slavery. You're invoking slavery. That is a mighty big jump.
She argues that we can't possibly destroy a system like white supremacy and build something new if we're using the same tools that created it.
Yeah, if we assume without question that white supremacy is endemic in the school systems, I guess, because, the whole system is geared towards white supremacy. So how do any kids who aren't white get through it? How do any of them graduate? How do any of them succeed? So I have to ask then, speaker, you appear, and I have no other evidence to go off of, but you appear to be white. So is your educational credentials thus invalid? Might I ask?
So if I fail to examine how I might be implicit and complicit in this system, then I might be sustaining that same white supremacy and passing it on to my students.
So even though you completely lack any innovation or forethought or intention or even any kind of desire to place one race above another, you have to be suspicious of your passive role complicity in a ideology of racial supremacy. Ooh, so shouldn't the rest of us also look at you as suspect of such things? How can we trust anything that you say? Because for all we know, what you're telling us right now perpetuates white supremacy.
So as we stay here for a minute, I would like to share with you 4 things that I could do. And at that time, I was 8. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't even tell anyone about this until right now.
Since 1988, you have never told that story. This presentation is the first time that you've told anyone in your life since the 3rd grade that story. Okay, the facts of your story are, because I have no information elsewise, up for debate. That claim, I do not believe at all. But that aside, she says she has 4 things we can do. All right. And as you know, I love lists because they make for such easy commentary breaks.
But I feel like I'm being faced with this situation every day still, where I'm being put on a side. So I'd like to share with you 4 different things that I could do to respond to this situation.
Respond to what situation? The teacher with the bar of soap in the kid's mouth, or the general rot of white supremacy inherent to the education system? I guess we'll find out.
Number 1 is speak up. Can I hear you say speak up?
Speak up.
Yes, please reaffirm to me that you're listening to what I have to say, and at least by extension, thus agreeing with what I have to say, because I need the confidence boost. I need to know you're all on the same page with me as I lead you down this path. The first one is probably fairly simple. Speak up. Yeah, if you see a teacher shoving a bar of soap into a 3rd grader's mouth because he's black, pinning him to the ground, yeah, it makes sense to speak up. The fact that you said nothing at 3rd grade, I could believe it. Little kids are scared, that kind of thing. The claim that you've never told this story until now, not so much.
Thank you. So the first thing I could do is say something. Robin DiAngelo says in her book, White Fragility, that...
Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility, oh boy, it's the modern Bible of self-hatred, everyone. Yay, Robin DiAngelo. Our speaker is an adherent of Robin DiAngelo. Why am I not surprised?
Silence is one of the most important things that keeps white supremacy in place.
Yes, silence. By the way, guys, there's a whole bunch of things that keep white supremacy in place. The first one is silence. If someone confronts you or you're witness to something that's totally and absolutely racist, silence is bad. Also, if someone confronts you with an accusation of racism and you get angry or defensive, that is also bad because that shows your fragility. And thirdly, if someone confronts you with an accusation of racism or white supremacy and you leave the conversation without engaging with it, well, that's also bad because that means you're fragile. So basically, everything except total and absolute subservience and agreement with the notions of white supremacy and or racism in yourself is bad. You just have to accept it. If you get accused, if you get called out on it, you just have to nod your head, bow your head, and feel shame.
So the first thing I could do is just talk about it. Now, when I first started preparing for this talk, I was afraid to tell people what my talk was about. But as I've been preparing the last few months, I've been talking about white supremacy a lot.
I'm shocked. And in the climate that we live in the circles that I can only assume our speaker travels in, she was nervous about saying what her talk was about. Really? Really? That you're against white supremacy? Really? You're an adherent of Robin DiAngelo and white fragility, and you were nervous about broadcasting what your talk was going to be about over the last several months, and the story that you've never told before now? Okay. Devil Fruit Zero, thank you. I hate myself enough. I don't need any help. Yeah, pushing at an open door, right? And thank you, Point Curation. Silence is violence. This space is for X voices. Yeah, there's that. There's that too. The soft bigotry of low expectations, etc. Okay, so she was really scared to talk about her talk in the months that she was preparing for it. Okay.
Very loudly with everyone that I meet. My roommates have been getting up in the morning. They're taking showers. I'm talking about white supremacy.
You must be really fun at parties.
They're eating their Cheerios. I'm talking about white supremacy.
Wow, you almost sound like a zealot. Someone who's obsessed with white supremacy. I would assume to see that kind of behavior in a white supremacist or a paranoid.
They have people coming over the house. They're trying to play guitar and hang out. And I'm like, but what about white supremacy? What are we doing?
You know, you're kind of undercutting your own credibility here. Because like I said, you sound like a zealot. You sound like an obsessive. You almost sound like a conspiracy theorist at a certain point. Replace white supremacy with, what are we doing about the lizard people? Should I give either such individual any more benefit of the doubt?
Because the time is now to talk about this. We are in an era of urgency.
Is it because of Trump? Is it? Please do tell me, is it because of Trump?
As I've continued talking to people, I've realized that actually people are relieved to talk about this because so many people have experiences very similar to mine that they never felt like they could talk about and unpack.
Many people like you had a teacher who tackled a small third grader black kid and shoved a bar of soap in their mouth and then physically segregated the kids in their classroom, complaining about not having a curtain to put between the two sides. Okay.
And really, we've been carrying this around.
So you travel in circles with people who are amenable to discussing their complicity. Okay, I don't know if the pepper jack's getting to my brain or my vocabulary just dropped out, but either way. Yeah, anyway, their involvement with white supremacy. Okay.
So number two is move. Can I hear you say move?
Move. Almost sounds like moo, like the entire audience is a bunch of cattle. Okay, so speak up and move. Speak up and move. What? Move where?
Thank you. So that teacher was trying to teach me that I was on her side just because I looked like her. She was putting me in a place. What if I cross that line? What if I move? Because it's not really as dangerous for me to move. I have more choice in that situation. The only student who spoke up against her was physically assaulted. Now, I was not at risk for physical assault. Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about In Between the World and Me.
Ta-Nehisi Coates. Yeah, another reliable witness in this whole situation. Not at all a racial supremacist or a racist in and of himself. Okay. You see, and the way that she said it, assaulting a child. The teacher assaulted a third grader. You know, at best an 8-year-old. And nothing happened. Nothing happened to this teacher. Nobody said anything. This kid didn't go off to his parents. No report was made. This teacher continued to be able to do what they were doing. If I don't believe your story that you use as a basis for your entire talk, it's very difficult for me to take anything else you have to say seriously. You know? But okay, tell us about Ta-Nehisi Coates' declarations or whatever.
How Black people's bodies are actually in physical danger. Now, what danger am I in today giving this talk?
No more danger than I would assume someone who doesn't look like you would be giving this talk. Because I hate to tell you this, most of society is not a bunch of violent racists. You might believe that to be the case. You may move through your life believing that to be so, which I can only imagine how it is that you interact with just people on the street, but you're in no danger. Any speaker other than you on that stage saying the same thing would be in no danger. Not with that audience, not with the zeitgeist as it is.
Maybe somebody doesn't like my talk. Maybe I make somebody upset. That's a risk I can take.
Maybe you'll be deplatformed for just having an opinion that's opposite a lot of other people, which of course has never happened to anybody on the other side of the equation, you know, because we're all very civilized.
So number 3 is challenge. Can I hear you say challenge?
Challenge. Oh, sorry. I'm not supposed to be doing that.
So challenging our institutions. Now, if all of us got together in that room, people who are teachers in this room, you know that if a whole group of students gets against you, there is no way you're going to go forward with that lesson. Am I right?
Yeah, are you right? Yeah, no, you're right. I'm still hung up on the grown adult teacher assaults a third grader with a bar of soap and nothing happened. Grown adult teacher pins a child to the ground and shoves a bar of soap in his mouth and nothing happened. In 1988, mind you, not 1952 Atlanta or Georgia or something. No, 1988, wherever she was from. That's the part that I can't get past. Of all the other claims that she made about her quote unquote story, that one makes zero sense.
So if all the students got together in that room to challenge that teacher, I don't think she would have been able to do that.
And no student out of that entire classroom, especially the kid that was assaulted, told anybody anything about that at any point then until your appearance on this stage. Right.
And as I'm speaking, also, we could just defer all the responsibility on that teacher, but she was part of a larger system too.
Oh, so she was a victim. She had no agency of her own. She was actually an outgrowth of the system. So to a certain extent, she needs to be held blameless in what she was doing. Assaulting a third grader, pinning him to the ground and shoving a bar of soap in his mouth in front of all the other kids in a classroom, in a public school. Got it.
She started this job, I'm sure, because she wanted to teach little children, and instead she ended up inflicting harm because of the system she was a part of. So how can we challenge that institution? Right now, there is a lawsuit by the American Civil Liberties Union about how schools are still segregated today, demanding that we educate all students equitably.
Small bit of roboting, but could be me, says Gunfox. Okay, guys, I need to check in. Am I roboting? Can you hear me? Are you seeing the broadcast? This is my paranoia creeping in because it's happened before. Let's see. Nothing for you says you found a real gem for this one, Scribe. John Smith says no. No robots as tall person. Not right now. Okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. When you're flying solo, I've got nobody to check my six. So there's a lawsuit to make sure that kids are treated equitably. There's no laws on the books that are supposed to do that. There's no legal recourse that any parent, any teacher, any student can point towards. There's an assumption that everything's being done unequitably. Because, I mean, if you look at statistics on spending on education from state to state or county to county, I'll bet you there's a lot of variance. I will bet you there's a lot of variance. Is it because of race or is it because of economics? Are there any other factors that might be considered at all? Because when you tell me that there's a singular cause for all the problems in XYZ PDQ territory, I have a hard time believing it. That requires an extension of faith that I don't possess, not being a white supremacist zealot, which our speaker proudly tells us that she is.
And number 4, the one that I can do right now, because now I'm the teacher in that classroom.
Which is a very, very scary notion.
Number 4 is imagine. Can I hear you say imagine?
You know, when I hear like a speaker on a stage get an entire congregation of people to repeat back to them the thing that they said, it does sound a little cultish. Do you really need that affirmation? Do you really need to like implant those thoughts into people's heads? Do you lack the confidence of your own convictions that you need to gather people around you with very simple statements at the beginning? You all believe in equity and justice, don't you? You all believe that education is important, don't you? None of you are white supremacists, are you? Yeah.
Thank you. And this is the most important thing.
She says thank you every time because she needs that affirmation. She needs to know that you've taken one more step down the road of agreeing with her. And that also makes me think the next thing she's going to say is going to sound even nuttier than the last one.
Because that teacher couldn't imagine another possibility. And as long as we are segregated in our minds of these two sides, thinking of what side we're on, we're never going to move forward and create a new society.
We. You say we. But, and this is just a thought, are you sure you are not just speaking for yourself?
So we need to give students the space to create new tools to dismantle that house and build a new one.
Okay, I hope she elaborates. What tools are you providing your students based on their race to dismantle the conspiracy theory of white supremacy that is inherent and endemic in your own career and institutions? What tools might those be that you are handing to the children under your tutelage?
Now, I'm a teacher of performing arts.
You're a drama teacher, you say. That is so very, very fitting. All right.
And language arts.
A drama teacher and a language arts teacher. What a wonderful combination. What a wonderful skill set with which to project the message of the impending doom of white supremacy that is just crawling through all of our educational institutions. Boy, drama and language. All right.
So who am I to be talking about race?
Well, okay. I mean, in the sense that neither of the two things you just mentioned are, let's say, I don't know, social anthropology or sociology or at the worst racial studies or anything like that. So sure, on a academic basis, I'll agree. It is a curiosity as to why a drama teacher and a language arts teacher has any basis on which to talk about race or racial dynamics or racial history or anything like that. So, all right, you got me. Why?
Actually, I teach something very important. I teach students to imagine.
Like, I don't know, imagining that a adult teacher could pin a third grade black student to the ground in 1988 in a public school in front of a bunch of other kids, shove a bar of soap in their mouth and not have any consequences befall them. Yeah, I can imagine quite a bit.
And we might think, well, we can just diversify the curriculum, right? And include voices of diverse backgrounds. But I have to think about the way that I'm doing it. It's not really that simple.
It's not that simple. I mean, couldn't you just, I don't know, not be racist? I mean, wouldn't that be like the very first step? Just not be a racial supremacist of one stripe or another? Do you have to like prove to your students or the classroom that you're not a racist by diversifying your curriculum? I mean, I guess that'd be one way to do it, to virtue signal by dint of the content you're presenting, but couldn't you just, like, I don't know, not be racist?
Because if the only voices of people of color that I feature in my classroom are people expressing being marginalized and oppressed, that's all that students can imagine.
Well, pardon me for a second while I think about that. I mean, first off, you're sort of undercutting the imagination of your students, but Sure, to a certain extent, if you present them with and immerse them within a notion that the only status one can look upon a non-white person is one who is a victim, then yes, you may instill in those children a belief that to be anything other than white is to be flawed and or underprivileged or underskilled or something, which is effectively racism. It might be quote unquote benevolent racism, but sure, I'll extend to you that point. That is not necessarily a bad point. I'm not sure it's going to last very long, but that is not necessarily a bad point.
So students have to be able to imagine a future in which they are empowered, where all students are empowered. And we look at things like N.K. Jemisin, the writer who wrote How Long Till Black Future Month, where she talks about in speculative fiction and science fiction, even people of color are underrepresented there. So we think about students writing themselves into the future, students of color writing themselves into places of power.
Yeah, we have no examples of anyone who isn't white achieving a place of power. It's just impossible to imagine a time or a future or a place or a nation wherein someone who is not white achieves a station of power in this world. It's impossible. They can't imagine it. They just can't imagine it. They can't do it on their own. We need to tell them that they can. We need to give non-white students permission to imagine something other than a life of perpetual oppression and victimhood. Because without us telling them that they can, they wouldn't know to do it. And they have no examples, no role models, nothing in history, modern or otherwise. No, nope. You were pretty close there, lady. You're really, really close. But you brought it all the way back around real quick, didn't you?
And imagining that through fiction, or things like musical theater, not just reimagining the future, but reimagining the past.
Reimagining the past. You know, a lot of people would call that revisionist history, depending on the context. I'm not quite sure where you're going with that one, but let's reimagine the past. To what end?
How has Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton reimagined our history?
It has turned historical events into a musical, which of course has never been done before with any other subject or any other historical figures in any way, shape, or form. And whatever Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton, whatever it does portray, is not history. It is entertainment. It may be educational to a degree. It may be illustrative of historical events to a degree, but it is not historical fact.
By putting a Black George Washington on stage.
That doesn't change history.
By reimagining our founding fathers through the lens of hip-hop culture.
That doesn't change history.
We have to be able to imagine, because at some point, the idea of whiteness was just an idea in someone's imagination.
Uh-huh. And the idea that non-white students are incapable of imagining a better future for themselves unless you, the white savior teacher who is so wretched and roiling in her whiteness, bestows upon them the possibility that they might have a better future than what you imagine for them inherently because of what they look like. Okay. Got it.
And it was created as a system of oppression. Diane DePrima says, the famous poet, that
So famous, I've never heard of her, but hey, how much poetry do I read on a regular basis? All right.
the only war is the war against the imagination.
The only war is the war against the imagination. Okay.
The only war is the war against the imagination.
You know, when you start repeating things, when you start using repetition to try to drill an idea home to your audience, again, that is cultish behavior.
The only war is the war against the imagination.
Okay, third time isn't the charm. It's not making any more sense. It's not becoming my personal credo just because you keep saying it.
And all other wars are subsumed in it.
All other wars are subsumed into the war against the imagination. You know, it's fortune cookie logic. You could take that phrase and probably extrapolate it to mean anything and apply to anything. So, okay, great. I don't know that I'll remember it 20 minutes from now, but there's a better chance that you've repeated it 3 times.
So how can we teach students to imagine a new future for all of us? Thank you very much.
I don't know. How can you teach students to imagine a new future? By making them believe they have no future until you bestow upon them the wisdom of your own horribleness that they have a future. I mean, setting aside, I don't know, Barack Obama as evidence that, yes, someone who isn't white can achieve power in this world. Some people, and I've had this said to me before, that's a cheap shot. Barack Obama's a cheap shot. Like, okay, well, maybe, I don't know, but the president of the United States, you don't get much higher on the echelons of power than the president of the United States. So you may think it's low-hanging fruit, but that's only because it's at the top of the tree, man. There's no one else around at that point. But no, kids who aren't white can't imagine they have any possibility of achieving anything in life because of the color of their skin. I'm not quite sure what point I was supposed to take away from our speaker on that, except for her having the soft bigotry of low expectations, which is totally not possibly racism in any way, shape, or form. And her promoting, ironically enough, white supremacy. But anyway, we've heard her, you've heard me. So now it's your time, chat. We got a few minutes before I hit that magical hour mark that I go for on these streams. So if you have comments of your own, observations, corrections, complaints, by all means, put them in the chat now. Nothing for you here, says Michael Jordan. Look, there aren't that many people who aren't white who have achieved things. We have to remember that. She tells us that, you know, there's no way to imagine such a thing. Let's see. Seal 77, he was half white, though. That doesn't count. Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you say so. Random American, why didn't she call out the teacher by name? Well, I mean, you know, that might be giving us information that might be verifiable in some way. But, you know, I'm sure it happened. I'm sure that teacher physically assaulted a small black child, pinned them to the ground, and then shoved a bar of soap in his mouth. And yeah, I'm sure that all happened exactly the way she said. Sorry, Jim says, what city was this in? I don't know. Whatever city that Ursuline Academy is in, I guess. The presentation. I don't know if you're talking about the incident that she cited. I have no idea. But so wherever Ursuline Academy is. Alyssa doesn't lie. Literally, almost every little girl wants to be Rihanna, but you can't aspire to be like Rihanna, especially if you're white. I mean, you might be saying that sarcastically, ironically, but I mean, I can't count how many people I knew growing up that were girls of various races, if it matters, who wanted to be Whitney Houston at the time. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily something to aspire to now, but back in the 80s, it certainly was. And kids singing Whitney Houston songs and eventually becoming singers. I know of at least a couple of kids in my school that went on to become professional performers who were big fans of Whitney Houston at the time. So, and they weren't white, by the way. I don't think they were black either, but there you go. Let's see. Hocatus Maximus, Commander Sisko from DS9, great commander. Yeah, but Hocatus, the only non-white captain. I mean, come on. He was totally a token. He had no merits of his own or anything. He had no personality or story of his own. He didn't do anything over the course of that series to mark him out as his own man or anything. No. He was just put there because, anyway. Giovanni Prince, and no child said anything because kids don't question diddly ever. Yeah, third graders, they never talk. They never tell their parents about anything. The kid involved, pinned to the ground, assaulted, soap shoved in his mouth, obviously didn't go crying to his mother or anybody else or any other teacher or nothing. No, it just didn't happen. They knew to keep quiet. Yeah. Seal 77, LOL, good way to piss off DS9 fans. Yeah, well, that's one way to do it. Deco, 500 black parents protested the incident and even had children not attend. What? Did I miss something? Maybe I missed something. Deco, the soap story is real. 1980 in Albany, Georgia, but it was only reported on in 2 issues of Jet magazine, a black magazine, so I'm having doubts. Well, she said 1988 is when this occurred. 1988. So again, I don't disbelieve that it might have been the case that this actually happened at some point in time. Okay. But the way that she is telling it makes me doubt the veracity of her claim. Let's see. Sorry, Jim, I thought it might have been in apartheid South Africa. I could see that, sure. But she's talking about 1988 in, I'm assuming, America, because she's talking about the American educational system. Andrew Joyner, I think it's funny how they don't see the danger in conflating white majority with white supremacy. That's something that I've always found very interesting when they talk about white supremacy. They conflate those two things together. Like, because demographic X is larger, therefore that equals a racist ideology is in place or something. Or simply the preponderance of a particular demographic means that there is a conspiracy involved to make that demographic in preponderance or something. That's the only way I can interpret some of the claims or paranoias or conspiracy theories. Pinkala the Driving Ape Man, she read it in the magazines and used it to fuel her story. This is a classic tactic. Could be. Sarjim says it's a Jet magazine urban legend. Could be. Like I say, she says 1988. I don't know. Parody Bear, soap is dope. Don't do suds, kids. Tall person, I think the kid got mouthy, said a swear, and got his mouth washed out. I don't know, but I don't believe her story. The more I heard it, the more that she said it, the more that I thought about it. I don't believe that it happened at all. And if it happened in any measure, as she describes it, it still doesn't make any sense. Let's see. Alyssa doesn't lie. Andrew, I've always thought the exact same thing. The conflating, yeah. Jim says, yeah, they need this kind of sad story to get the audience in tears. Ken Lee says, so it's 1989 now? Well, she said 88, or I should say that people in the chat have reminded me it was 88. I must have missed that part, or it just went over my head. But Pincalo says, the Ursuline Academy is a Catholic school. If it happened, it was a nun. Oh, well, I mean, again, I don't know if she was saying that it happened to her at that school. She said in third grade in 1988. So I don't know what institution it happened in. She didn't clarify a name or anything, just third grade 88. Gunfox61, Scribe, if 1% of her story is true, there'd be a police report. You would think. You would think. Let's see. Dectran said Cisco sings the thong song. Yes, Cisco does. It's spelled differently, but not Benjamin Sisko. Benjamin Sisko is a goddamn badass. You ever see that episode late in the series where he basically gets along with having arranged for innocent people to die to try to end a war? That was some dark Star Trek. That was dark Trek right there. Good stuff. Very dark Trek. Let's see. Death Glock. Undoing white supremacy in schools, eh? What the hell is this about? Well, Death Glock, you're going to have to review the video because I've been going on for just about an hour on it, and our speaker and her claims and her theories and so on. Sorry, Jim says, hey, the nuns used to beat me with giant yardsticks. I would love to see some corroborative evidence of her story. Okay. I mean, it sounds like BS to me, but depending on the circumstances of the setting or whatever, it's not impossible. It just sounds highly improbable. And Hawkins says, thank you for the continuing entertainment. I shall now continue the tediousness of making items in RPG Maker. Well, whatever floats your boat. Now, is that the RPG Maker where you're making the Lords of the Night game? Or am I completely thinking of somebody else? If I'm giving somebody else credit to you for somebody else's project, because I'm a little tipsy right now, I apologize. Alyssa doesn't lie. People lie and exaggerate so often, I question how these stories actually happened. We are the protagonists of our own stories, and the odds are always against us. P-Dog9 says, Dark Trek, really, Scribe? I couldn't think of a better phrase, you know, where Cisco, like the utopian ideal, the high-minded civility of Star Trek and every other series. And then you get late in the game in DS9, and Cisco's like, I will manipulate for the deaths of innocent people in order to help end a war and be okay with that. What else would you call it? Morbid Trek? Pragmatic Trek? I don't know. But yeah, Alyssa doesn't lie. I mean, in the absence of corroborative evidence, someone saying that everything was terrible and they were the victim, or they were the innocent person and nothing happened to the horrible person. Again, depending on the circumstances they state, the time period, whatever, it's a judgment call. In this instance, I'm very skeptical. Let's see, Seal77. If she wanted to remove white supremacy, maybe she should take that first step and resign. I mean, if you listen to what she was saying, in her mind, looking upon a non-white student, that student cannot imagine themselves as anything better than, I don't know, the lowest of the low, or they have no possibilities in life, or that they're perpetually oppressed forever and can't achieve anything. So it is incumbent upon her to show them the imagination necessary to pull themselves out of their fate. I mean, I'm not quite sure what else you would call that than the soft bigotry of low expectations, i.e., looking at someone and based on their race, making an assessment of their value or their quality or their potential, which is, again, racism. But with that, guys, we are at the top of the hour, and thus, arbitrarily speaking for my own self, the end of the stream. Thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, thank you for coming out this morning to watch this bewildering recitation of quote-unquote facts to us. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you were just sort of entertained after a fashion. But I thank you for joining me. Moderators, for those of you that are here, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though you guys are the best behaved audience I could ask for. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Remember, guys, it might be the case, it usually is the case, that Ranting Monkey is streaming right now. I don't know if he is. I'm just going to roll the dice and say that he is. So you might go check out what he's doing. Remember also that tonight on Monkey's channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can watch me, Monkey, and Satsu on Lords of the Night. And that tomorrow, if things line up, over on Tailed Features channel at around 8 a.m. Pacific time, he'll be teaching me Scottish Gaelic in episode 4 of that series. But keep an eye on Twitter for that. And I have plans to do another TEDXcellence tomorrow, Sunday, around this same time. So keep an eye out for that on Twitter. Either way, I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. Have a good rest of your Saturday, everyone, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.